Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Alexia, and I am the program manager of the Microsoft Reactor Toronto. I will be sharing session resources with you in the chat. But before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items, our code of conduct and event guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. And secondly, our event guidelines. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I will be sharing the link in the chat for our on-demand content. And if you have not been on a live stream through YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube in order to have access and interact in the chat. You can set that up now, and if you're unable to use the chat but have questions, feel free to reach out to us through social media or on our website. Which brings us to today's session. I'm going to bring in our speaker here for today, Juan and Taylor. Hello, hello.
Thank you so much, Alexia. Really happy to be here. And I want to welcome everybody to our last episode of the second season. Just before we start, I want to again thank Alexia and Microsoft Reactor for partnering up with us. And the whole idea of the Access Innovators Network is to help people with disabilities understand more about AI and really level up with the understanding that the AI is forever changing our lives. With that, I would like to introduce Taylor, and I'm very, very excited about today's episode. So Taylor, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Taylor Arndt. I am the Chief AI and Operations Officer at a little known company called Techopolis Online Solutions. I've been blind since birth, and my day to day is I get to play with the newest AI tech. Well, I mean, not quite, but I really get to mess around with AI a lot. I also do mobile app development and a lot of other things, but I am probably one of the biggest fans of AI you will find. At least that's what people think that are around me all the time. And I try to test things as they come out, and I also try to do reviews about different AI technologies and different things. I'm also on YouTube and other places. So I love AI. I have always, loved AI since it came out, and I am a native screen reader user.
Awesome, Taylor. Thank you so much. And I'm super excited. So, usually, the way we run our sessions, I get to talk to our presenters a few times. And last week, we had a great conversation with Taylor. We want to make sure people understand how to use AI and why it's important. So, I know Taylor is very technical, but at the same time, she has some great tricks. So, Taylor, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your experience with AI? And then what are some things that people with disabilities can do today to start utilizing it or playing with it?
Great questions. I have always told people, and I actually also talk about AI with a whole bunch of different people every single week, between 50 and 100. I've got different calls online and things. But beside the point, I always tell people when they're starting off with AI, start with one tool first. Don't try to use all of them. You're just going to bury yourself and never use it. So the tool I'd always recommend first is ChatGPT. Why? It's the jack of all trades. If you have an iPhone, 15 and above, you can actually use Apple Intelligence, and you can actually connect ChatGPT, so you can ask your assistant. I'm not going to trigger anybody's, and you can be able to say ask ChatGPT, and you can ask it questions through voice through your phone. So if you're just getting started, start off with AI. You don't have to pay for any of these tools. A lot of them, or all of them, have generous free tiers that you can get to know. You get to put your feet in the water a little bit and see how that works. There's other things that you can try later on, but biggest thing is start with one, get good at it, then go to another one, then go to another one, and keep building out your workflow.
I love that. And there is one thing that you said, and I usually tell people get into a workflow. And oftentimes people don't know exactly what that means. Maybe can you provide an example of a regular workflow that you have been able to optimize to help you in your day-to-day tasks?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things. Like workflow is kind of a set of steps or a way I get things done efficiently, right? Because especially running, at being at a very, very small business. I mean, we're talking like one or two employees here. We are really tight on resources, right? We don't have a whole lot of human capital. But you know what we do have? A lot of AI capital. But I say this because people may be thinking, well, AI is expensive. And maybe, but don't worry about that. The reason I'm saying that is because workflows help you to be faster and they help you to be able to make sure that you can be able to get things done quicker. So, as an example of a workflow, let's say I am writing a technical specification document, which I happen to do a lot for new software, right? So if I'm like, I'm not a project manager type, I never have been, and I don't know that I will be. But there's an AI out there that is a project manager type. So I go to ChatGPT, I put in my big prompt, and I say, hey, generate this as a text document. I don't want Word documents. I want a text document so I can search through later. And then, that's kind of how I do it, right? I have a certain workflow, aka a set procedure of steps that I follow to follow and do a certain task.
That's really good. And usually what I tell people is to really try to think of that specific workflow. And if they don't know it, even go and ask ChatGPT, I want to do A, B, or Z. And can you please provide some help and some instructions as to how to do it? Now, so you mentioned that it is important for people not to overwhelm themselves with too many tools, to start with ChatGPT. But is there another tool, once and they have gained a little bit of experience utilizing ChatGPT, is there another tool that you think is going to be really good for them to start to get to know?
Well, it depends. I can't recommend one specific tool. Why? Everybody has their use cases. And if I were to recommend one specific tool, I would be doing a lot of people a disservice. AI is not a one size fits all. People think it is, but it's not. AI can be very personalized, and it should be. It should not be a one size fits all solution, but it should be very personalized for that user. So, a couple options are now, this is where you have like a little fork in the road. You have to decide some options. One, you can use something like Claude. So if you're doing a lot of data analytics, you can use Claude. You can also use other tools like Gemini. So if you're in the Google Workspace ecosystem or the Google ecosystem as a whole, you can use Gemini. Again, these are really good tools, but you don't want to overdo it. If you do a lot of like searching and financial analysis and other things, you could use something called Perplexity, which has like a agent mode. And then if you want to do a lot of like, other different kinds of tasks, like if you're in the office ecosystem, obviously there's like Copilot and other things that are powered by ChatGPT, but are more specialized for like working in office. So there's so many different options out there, and I can't give a one specific answer that would fit everybody.
Definitely, I completely understand that. And you mentioned something that people should start to think more about, and that's agents. Can you maybe describe for our viewers what an AI agent is and how it may help them later on?
Yes, so an AI agent is simply an AI that lives in a server and it's agentic. Agentic simply means that it can perform tasks autonomously, right? So there's different kinds of agents, and really, the kind we're talking about are autonomous agents, right? So if I give an agent a task, for example, I say, go make a specification document about this product, I give it the entire thing, right? And make it in a Word document. It will go do it. It won't ask me a bazillion zillion questions and like make me do everything. It'll just go do it. Right. So there's different kinds of agents, but that's kind of the most general form of an agent. And there's many different ways to make agents, obviously, but I won't go into that here. But agents are definitely useful and you use them in everyday life, right? You think, well, I don't really. Yes, you do. Have you booked a flight and the airport had like a chatbot? Have you contacted customer service in the last week? I'm sure you have. You have an AI agent potentially, right? If it says, hi, welcome to so and so's AI assistant, that's an AI agent. So AI agents can take multiple forms and they can also do multiple things. And you can have multiple of them to help you be able to get your stuff done.
Yes, and I think one thing that I keep telling people, AI is forever changing everybody's life. So far, it's worked a lot of in terms of questions and answers, and it's going to be a lot better at maybe reasoning. But as we are faced with agents, you're going to be able to have specific agent executing actions for you. And I think this is going to be really powerful, especially for people with disabilities. Many times web interfaces are not accessible, but if
Oh,
we were
yeah.
to have, yeah, if we were to have an agent to execute things for us. So maybe can you maybe share a little bit of what kind of inaccessible AI have you found, or what are some of the obstacles you have to face when trying to interact with any AI agent or AI per se?
That is a really good question. And what I will say about that is, again, it all comes down to the interface of the chat website
Hmm.
or the application. So, for example, in the ChatGPT Mac app, I went on this tangent on social media the other day, and there is a Mac app for ChatGPT, and that's great. It has the most features out of any of the apps. But you know what else it has? The most accessibility issues. Yeah, I know, right? It has the most accessibility issues out of any of the ChatGPT apps. I can't even select like different text. Like if I have to interact with it with voiceover, and it's just a nightmare. You know, that's of course on like YouTube and things I have, but yeah, I don't need to relive that here. But the biggest barrier is the actual accessibility of the platform, right? So like Google Gemini is pretty good. ChatGPT on the web is really good as well. The Copilot Windows app, right? It sometimes has issues. So every chat has issues. Okay, I'm not going to say any of them are 100% perfect because if I did that, then I would not be clearing, wouldn't be painting a clear picture. But what I am going to say is I'm going to be very realistic in that, you know, you're going to need to have advanced screen reader or other disability assistive technology skills because not all of these are made accessible. In fact, none of them are. If you look at any of the like compliance or anything, none of them are that compliant with any of the standards, right? And so that's kind of something to keep in mind there is that no AI agent is going to be fully accessible, and you have to be able to work around things in order to be very successful.
Correct. It's unfortunate. I know we
I
do a
know.
lot of work when it comes to AI, as well as trying to build our own AI agent. And this is the first thing I tell our team, guys, we need to make sure that we are accessible. Now, to make a website accessible to every single type of disability, it doesn't always happen 100%. But I do think that AI is going to change the way in which we interact with the world. So far has been very dependent on a web interface, and I'm going to be accessing it through my computer or through my phone, sometimes even my watch. But I believe the way we communicate with AI is going to change, and maybe more like a voice interface. Have you tried voice interfaces, and what do you think about that?
Yes, actually. I watched this course. I think it was called like having an AI first mindset. And
Mhm.
something that I do with AI every single day is I actually have a project stand up. So the company I work for, we have a ChatGPT team subscription, right? So it has everything that we have. It has all of our Google Drive. It has everything in one place. So I talk about it. It's almost like my project manager be like, "Hey, did you finish this website, or how is this project going, or are you guys going to start this app before convention or after convention?" Right? So I've been able to prioritize my work with ChatGPT, and we're actually working on a whole bunch of AI agents ourselves right now. Because the truth is, we want to be able to get more done, so we don't have to like hire more employees. We want to be more proficient, efficient, whatever, and we want to be able to make sure that we are fully AI immersed. So that's something that's very important.
Now, that's pretty cool. And if we can actually go back to that specific example, can you share a little bit more in terms of that AI first, and how do you actually use ChatGPT to help you organize and gain productivity? I'm very intrigued.
Okay, so I will say I'm still working on this workflow, but here's what I have now. I have a lot of things in ChatGPT. ChatGPT introduced this new thing. It's called connectors. And what connectors are simply bridges to your data, right? So it works with Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint, HubSpot, Notion, you name it, it's probably in there, right? There's a lot of these, and you can literally enable them, sign into your account, and it will access things. So I could ask ChatGPT, where is the, I don't know, like, where is the document about this client, and their specification, or, I could ask it about a certain thing, and it will look in my Google Drive, right? So search in Google Drive. And you can also do things like in HubSpot, if you use that, search like customer records and compare them. You can look through your OneDrive and SharePoint sites if you're a Microsoft shop. So these connectors are very powerful because they allow you to be able to connect your data to the AI and making it smarter and more efficient.
That is, I have to admit that I know about connectors. I haven't really played with it. Oftentimes what I do is, if I'm working with ChatGPT, I will create a project and I will try to give it as much information as possible. But that's one thing I'm going to be playing with. Now, if you were to advise somebody with a disability, it's best for them to start utilizing AI. We know there are going to be some technical issues, especially when it comes to assistive technology and how they operate with a specific browser or specific apps. But when it comes for them to really trying to interact with the AI, is there any advice you provide? What are some good prompts to start, or even where can they actually learn more about talking to the AI, or what people call prompt engineering?
Yeah, and I won't do a whole deep dive in prompt engineering because, there's a lot of other resources about that, and I don't want to take up the entire time about that, but it's very important. If you could not master prompt engineering, then, there's no point, right? But it's pretty easy. So, a first prompt I recommend is, what can you do? What can you help me with? Or you could be more specific and say, I have this task, like, I don't know, I've got to send an email to a client about this problem. What can you do to help me? It says, well, I can't send the email, but I can write it and draft it. Okay. So things like that are definitely a great way to start. You don't know what you don't know. So just start exploring. That's really what I recommend.
100% agree. Oftentimes, what I usually tell people is, the quality of the prompt is going to dictate what ChatGPT or any AI agent is going
Yes.
to give you. So, do you have any examples on that? Because I know I'm getting people asking me, Juan, I went and I told it, I want you to help me write an email, but it didn't sound anything like me. And I usually said, well, you have to train it, right? Do you have any little tricks and tips that you can advise people on what to do?
So ChatGPT, if you're on the paid plans, they have something called memory. In
Mhm.
memory, it learns over time about you, right? Well, every time it writes an email or a social media post, one thing I say, so basically, I have like a drafted email that I wrote, and I say, you know, write this email about, I don't know, today's meeting, and, to this person, and I have all my emails here, right? That I wrote myself. So I write it first and like write a general overview of what I want, and then I have AI proofread it. And I say also no emojis and no, what do I say? Like no pictures like of, different things. And I say no, like hashtags. This is not a social media post. And I kind of go on and on. I specify rules. And then I give it an example. That's actually the best way of doing it, is actually giving it an example. Whenever I write GPTs, so GPTs, I won't get into those right now, but they're actually specialized versions of ChatGPT. I have
Mhm.
many of those actually. I actually have one about WCAG and like things, and you can actually ask ChatGPT about, the standards, right? And, they're all over LinkedIn, social media. I'm sure if you type in like WCAG GPT, you'll probably find it somewhere. But why I mention that is because I have to prompt it very well, right? Otherwise, it's not going to work. So, prompting is definitely very important. And again, the tips that I have for you: one, make sure you always give an example. So, I talk about that email. Put in a prior email that you've written, not to that client, but just a general email, right, in the format that you want. Right. And then also, if you like that, tell ChatGPT to like save it. Of course, this will not work on free plans. There is a light memory coming soon to free, but I do not know that it has rolled out yet. So I'm not going to say whether it has or not just because I'm not sure. The other thing you can also do, though, is have ChatGPT help you improve your prompt. You're thinking, what? Yeah, you can actually have ChatGPT help you improve your prompt. So if you're not getting the results you want and you're having trouble, what you can actually do is say, ChatGPT, I'm having trouble writing this prompt. I'm not seeming to get what I want. And then you can paste the original prompt and email and I say, can you please help me make this prompt better so that I'll be able to get the intended results? And that is something that's actually very, very powerful and not many people know about. There's also like special like prompt generators online. I won't get into all that right now, but there's definitely many ways that you can prompt and you can get good results with AI.
100%, I agree. And I actually love the tip of asking ChatGPT or, for that said, any AI to help
Yeah.
you improve your prompts. One thing that I do is whenever I start any kind of a chat, I like to give it a specific personality. For
Oh
instance,
yeah, I do that too.
yeah, I want you to act as such and such, perhaps as a marketing expert with so many years of experience. Now, the biggest thing for me is that I don't know what a marketing expert is, because I don't know. But what I've done is I've created a specific ChatGPT advisor, as I like to call it, and I tell it, I want you to help me create a persona that is going to help me do A, B, or C. And I tell it more about my needs, and it creates a full-on persona. Let's say if it's going to be a marketing expert, it usually includes specific skills, do's, don't do's, something that I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. I added to ChatGPT, and then I also said, can you please help me create a prompt to better get started? And it does it for you. So that's amazing for
That's
you.
good too. Yeah, that's a good way too.
Yeah. There, you mentioned something that a lot of people, and I've been using ChatGPT for a long time, but I know a lot of people don't know, and it's that of GPTs. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so custom GPTs. So I'll break it down even more. A
Hmm.
GPT is called a general pre-trained transformer. So I won't go too technical, but basically it's because the original GPT, so even before it was GPT or ChatGPT, it was actually GPT, right? So before the whole ChatGPT blew up, it was just GPT, right? Pre-trained transformer, right? So, pre-trained meaning that it's already trained, and transformer meaning the architecture, right? So general meaning it has general knowledge. So generally performed, bleh, if I can even say it right, general pre-trained transformer allows you to be able to create custom versions. So let me explain even more. So when ChatGPT came out, let's say that you need a specific task done a lot, like you need a project manager, right? Because you have trouble keeping deadlines and things, you can actually make a special project manager GPT, right? So a custom GPT is literally the same GPT you get on ChatGPT.com, but it's actually a customized version of that with your own like instructions and prompts. But the thing is, you don't have to do that every single chat because they're already added to its context. So you don't have to worry about doing the persona and things every time you want to chat with it. So those are kind of some things I recommend. If you're doing a task like more than 3 times, I probably recommend just making a GPT. That way you don't have to keep doing it. You don't have to keep doing the same prompt, same thing over and over again. It's free, right? I do not think you have very availability on the free plan, but I don't know. I think it's actually very limited, but you may have some, right? They change this all the time.
Correct. And the other thing you can do with custom GPTs is that you can train it with specific data as well. So you can
Yes.
upload a lot of data, and then as it's thinking or is trying to create content or execute different searches for you, you can actually reflect to that data.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Now, there's something that I really liked about what you do is that you're also a developer. Uh,
Yes.
can you talk to us a little bit more about tools you usually do and how you actually utilize AI for that?
Okay, so I heard part of that, part of the internet cut out. So did
Oh,
you say tools that I use?
correct. Yeah. So, what are some of the tools you use when it comes to developing, both for just regular tools as a regular developer, and how do you enhance that with AI?
Okay, so I actually use a lot of tools for development because I do multiple types of development. Mainly, I do Apple, so I do iOS development. I do Android when I have to. I try not to. And
Okay.
then I do web development with a framework in Python called Django. So I do a lot of Python development. So on the Apple side, let's start with there because that's what I have been doing more recently. I use Xcode, which is Apple's built in IDE, integrated development environment. And then I use this tool called Cursor. Now, this is going to be a little controversial, so hold on because people are going to probably be trying to press the chat buttons, and I'm fine with that. But, I'm sure the first reaction is going to be, well, it's not accessible. That's usually what happens in my community when I bring up something like this. And the thing is that, well, yes, you're kind of correct. It's not the most accessible. And would I like it to be accessible? Absolutely. Is it doable though, however? Yes. And it's kind of this discussion that comes up all the time in small business or business in general. We try to make everything 100% accessible, but that's not always the case. Is it
Mhm.
usable by me and is it efficient? Yes. And that's why I'm able to use it, right? So I know people are not going to be happy about that, and they may not. But the thing is, it's very good. I know that Microsoft has a tool. It's called GitHub Copilot, and GitHub Copilot's pretty good as well. But it is just not as good as Cursor or others. And I like Cursor because it is a fork of VS Code. So I'm already very familiar with VS Code. I can keep my screen reader settings, which is good. And I can also interact with their AI sidebar where I can like chat and things. I can attach cursor rules, which are basically like different instructions for the model. I can attach different kinds of things like that. I can attach images or things that it should look at. It has vision capability. And I love Cursor. There's other ones out there like Windsurf and others, but I found Cursor to be the best. Of course, Cursor has some downfalls where it doesn't index the code base all that well sometimes, so it'll try to create something even though it exists. But that happens sometimes with AI. So Cursor is definitely what I recommend. I use GitHub Copilot sometimes, especially if I'm trying to test it. But GitHub Copilot, actually, the use I've found it for, believe it or not, is when I'm in GitHub Desktop. GitHub, if you guys don't know, is a software storage platform where you can actually code and collaborate and store the software online. It's made by Microsoft, and they bought it back then. Who knows when? But GitHub Copilot is actually great for generating commit messages because man, sometimes I change a lot of things and I'm not sure what I remember, what I changed. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't even know what branch I'm on. So I actually like GitHub Copilot more as a Git manager rather than actually a coding agent, which is very interesting.
That's very good. Like I never thought about it that way. Now, for our viewers that some of them may have disabilities and they're thinking, okay, technology is just not my thing, or it's very difficult. As you mentioned, no product is going to be 100% accessible. But what are some of the things that they should be able to do today to try to start utilizing AI, or even perhaps become a coder or start coding?
That's a really good question. I will say that, like, I teach courses all the time. I have my YouTube channel where I do tutorials, I do live streams, I do things like that. I try to make it real on that YouTube channel, and sometimes people don't like it because I try to tell the truth. And I try to make sure that people know, look, this is an authentic perspective. A lot of times there's like some blind YouTubers or other people, or just YouTubers in general, who will just like not show the actual real perspective. And that happens with me. I show everything that is happening, whether it's good or bad, or sometimes even ugly, whether the ChatGPT Mac app. But I do things like that, and then I also teach on different platforms. And the company I work for, we have a courses platform. There's also other good courses platforms out there. If you want to start with like the basics, like web development, that's usually where people start. You could do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There's a platform called Free Code Camp. They're very accessibility friendly. I did an interview with them about a month or two ago. And then there's also other platforms. I'm trying to think now. There's like W3 Schools and others. There's so many resources to learn to code. It sometimes can be very overwhelming. And that's why sometimes it can definitely be very difficult to use. But in terms of like figuring out where to like go, actually, what I recommend is like, let's say you want to learn, I don't know, iOS development. Like that's just one thing about right now. So you could actually have ChatGPT be like, make me a curriculum that's accessible, that I can be able to learn iOS development. Like, give me the steps, right? So it could say, hey, do these resources. Now, I will warn people, not all resources are accessible, right? But of course, we strive to make ours and other people we know's resources accessible. In terms of like where to start with AI today, if you're disabled, I know it's difficult. I know it. I get it. However, you're not going to start things if you don't start them today, right? You're not going to start them if you don't start them today. You need to start them now, right? Now is the time. There's a statistic that is out there that people who embrace AI are going to be 20% more productive in the next 10 years than people who don't, right? And that goes for the workforce, right? People with AI skills are going to be prioritized over others. So if you want to succeed in the modern society, start learning AI now. Start with one tool, gradually build up. Try to find a peer community where you can talk about all this stuff, because the best way to learn is actually to immerse yourself in it. Be like, I'm going to get good at this or else, right? You need to actually have a motivation behind why you're learning, and you need to have a little bit of a goal or some kind of project you want to get out of it.
Definitely, and I love that. And a lot of times people don't realize that where we are today with different AIs, as I said, may not be perfect, but we more than ever have access to information. So, like you said, we can actually have ChatGPT train us or teach us how to get better. So, if before you didn't have access to specific school or to a program, or you didn't know how to start, right now you can actually have AI guiding you on how to do it. So, I definitely encourage people to do the same thing as well. Now, I want to switch a little bit because also something else that you do is advise other companies in terms of AI adoption. And I know we talked a little bit in terms of what that means, but maybe can you explain to people what are some of the obstacles a company may face when trying to integrate AI into their products, and then beyond that, how can they actually utilize AI integrate into the company, but also realizing that they may have people with disabilities and how they're going to be able to adopt that technology.
Okay, so that was kind of a loaded question, so I'll break it down a little bit.
Mhm.
So, right, AI consulting. It's definitely something we love to do at Techopolis, and I lead that role. And what we really like to do is start from the beginning, right? Start from how are you using AI? Because if you come to tell me, oh, we're not using AI at all, great. I'm going to tell you what I just told you guys just 10 minutes ago. Start with one tool. Now, if you're telling me I'm afraid of AI, okay, I'll ask you, like, why are you afraid of AI? Are you afraid it's going to take your jobs? Are you afraid it's going to do this, do that? But, the next thing I will do is I'll be like, okay, look, it will not take your jobs. It will not replace any of your employees will not get, swept up into AI. It will not ruin your processes. Let's do a trial. Let's try it for, even 3 days and see how it affects your productivity. And then let's, do more, do more, do more, right? The biggest thing is you just have to get started. If you don't get started, you're not going to do it. You just need to go, right? So that's the biggest thing. And, the other thing that people are wondering, well, how are we going to make it accessible, right? That's the biggest problem. A lot of these AI agents may not be accessible, and actually, we're coding AI agents ourselves right now. We're facing that ourselves, like with all the tool chains and things that are not accessible. I won't get into the technical mumbo jumbo here, but I will just say it can be a roller coaster. Right, but figure out what you want to do and figure out what agents you want to have, right? So if you're a Microsoft Copilot business subscriber, you can actually make agents in the Copilot Agent Studio and mess with that. Mess with all of the different options out there. If you are a Google Cloud person, you could do Vertex AI. There's so many different ways. If you want like a document-based agent where you have like a chatbot, you can use Amazon Q. I'm mentioning all these things because these are things that I've tried myself,
Mhm.
right? Of course, if you want to build these things, you can have at it if you are a developer, but that's kind of that, right? So hopefully that answered the question. Maybe I forgot a part, but I'm not sure.
No, no, that's actually very good. What I want to do before we go into our Q and A's, is I want you to maybe, if you were to be able to talk to somebody, and I know you already said, oh, the best thing for you to do is start doing it right now, and then you mentioned quickly if people are afraid, but what I've come across a lot of people with disabilities not knowing how to start or being really afraid. If you were to give them a little bit of advice as a result of saying, hey, you know what, yes, get using it, but what would that be, that advice be that, hey, you really have to get started, otherwise you're going to be left behind?
Good question. So what I recommend for people with disabilities, if they're that afraid, I could show them one task that's like, look, are you struggling with this task? Is it really overburdening you? Look what I can do with this AI, right? I'll try to make it so enticing, so they're like, I want to learn more. I want the curiosity. There's this thing called fear of missing out, right? And I don't want to leverage that in a bad way, but I try to get them to understand, like, I want to help them. I don't want to hurt them. I want to make sure that they're successful in what they do. And that's kind of what I want to do. I'm like, look, did you know, like, oh, you're having trouble with communication? Well, you can actually put this email into ChatGPT and it can summarize the key points for you and you'll be able to understand it a lot better without having to worry about it. Right? So there's so many different things that you can do and that person, with disabilities who may be afraid, it's like, look, I want to show you one task that you've been struggling with and how I can help you with AI because then they might be interested and keep going on and on from there.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to ask Alexia if she can help us and see if we have any questions from the audience.
Yes, thank you both for the first part of the session. We do have a lot of questions, so let me start. So Kevin asked originally at some point during one of your answers, and this is only available for premium or Teams account, right? So I'm assuming this was in regards to a different topic. Kevin, if you're still in the chat, feel free to give us a little bit more context as per what you were referring to as we move into the second question. Mark is asking, back in the late 90s, early 2000, don't judge me. No worries, Mark. Nobody's judging. I remember that a big hiring question was whether you knew how to use the internet or the MS Office products. Do you think that we are at a point where employers are asking for AI manipulation skills? Which AI skills should we encourage should we be encouraging for the older workforce?
Okay, so what I'm going to say is I'm giving my perspective as a younger worker, right? I am not that old, right? I have been born, I'm not going to exactly give my full age, but I've been born in the age of the internet, right? I grew up with the internet, but I understand that a lot of people have not. And what I would say for the workforce is yes, being on the employee and the employer side of handling all the operations, because that's another one of my job duties, we want candidates to be able to know, like, how to be able to use like ChatGPT or different common workplace AI tools. I would say that the most common is ChatGPT, and then maybe Claude, of course, depending on your industry, and then of course Office Copilot, and then of course if you are in the Google ecosystem, that would be Google Workspace, right? So using AI, being able to ask it to do things, right? You want to make sure you have good prompting skills. You want to make sure that you are using AI efficiently. You want to make sure that that you're like proofreading, making sure trust but verify is what we always say around here. That AI give you the correct things, right? You don't want to just submit something to your boss and that has incorrect info, so always proofread. Things like that, basic skills that you need to have in order to work in the AI workforce. Every company is going to be different though.
Definitely. And if I may I add something to it? AI
Go
is
ahead.
a tool.
It is.
It's going to be as good as you prompted. So as we said, if you don't know about prompting, there's lots of resources, but it has been easier than now to learn even from AI. But for always you're going to use the AI, just make sure that you read and understand.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
to be very careful because sometimes AI may not be factual and it may hallucinate and create information that is not really factual information. So think of AI that is going to help you reason. If you need to always do research, like Taylor said, you can use Perplexity. Oftentimes, you're going to get resources from universities. You can actually get that specific resource, could be PDF, sometimes could be 300, 400 pages. Really give it to the AI and say, hey, I want you to start helping me answer questions for this specific topic. Utilize this as training, and then you're going to minimize the hallucination process. But always, first and foremost, make sure you understand the information it's giving you.
Yeah, always, yes. I had AI hallucinate on me just this morning. So, yeah.
All right, thank you for that. Following up on Kevin's question. So, in terms of connecting agents inside ChatGPT, is it only available for premium or Teams account?
I believe that it is rolled out to the Plus, so it's like the $20 personal account, and the Teams, and the $200 Pro account. I believe. I'm on the Teams account, so I don't know about the other tiers, but I'm pretty sure that I heard my friend telling me that it was on his Plus account. So you'll have
Correct.
to check for yourself. And again, it also could vary on the countries, right? It's here in the USA. I don't know about Canada or others.
Makes sense. Thank you. Next question. In your opinion, what steps can be taken to make AI tools like ChatGPT more accessible to a wider range of users, especially those with disability or limited tech literacy?
Um, that's a good question. And what I will say to that is, well, it depends on their needs. I can't give a one size fits all, but I'll give a couple scenarios, just a couple. So let's say that you have trouble with like writing your thoughts out, right? Maybe use the voice mode, right? Open up advanced voice. With the plus subscription, I think you get like an hour a day or something. I've ran out on multiple occasions, so I know from experience. And on the teams, I think you get a little bit more, but not much. Right now in the pro, I think you almost get like unlimited. But if that's your problem, right? And let's say like if you're a screen reader user and you're trying to like find the response, in your prompt, have ChatGPT be like, can you output your response as a heading, right? Or have that, and there's a field in ChatGPT called custom instructions that can be applied to every chat, and you can have that. That sometimes works. We've actually experimented that with ourselves with our little group, and it works 80% of the time. But there's so many different variations of that, it's hard to know what the exact needs are.
All right. Thank you. Um, what do you see as the current pitfall of ChatGPT? Do you consider it to be a well-rounded AI product overall?
Yeah, it's kind of like the jack of all trades. Like it can do a little bit of everything, but I don't feel like it's a master of none, right? I mean, it can do code, it can do all this other stuff, but I don't feel like it's that specialized. But that's just what I've been observing.
Thank you. We have two more questions. As a project manager, what low-hanging AI fruit should I add to my tool belt?
Low hanging AI fruit. Well, I mean, I would say like in terms of tasks, like have it, you know, help generate project specifications. And I was talking about this earlier. I am not a project manager type, and I don't know how if I will be, but I have AI plan out my projects, plan out like scopes of work or other things. Again, these are tasks that I know most project managers do, but I'm not exactly sure. Start with like ChatGPT, but also see what your employer has, right? Because they may be in the Microsoft ecosystem and they may have Copilot or they may be in the Google system. And did you know that all Google Workspace customers, except for nonprofits, have Gemini built in? So those are things to keep in mind.
All right. And last question. How do you use LLMs to write tests for accessibility in apps and in web UI?
That's a good question. So what I do is every user's, or I should say company's testing approach is different. So I'm not going to exactly give all of the like secrets in terms of what I would do for testing. But what I will say is a lot of times we don't write test cases, the classic test cases. But let's say we do, right? I had to do those the other day because I was doing standard QA testing. So what I would actually do is take the documentation of that like code product and I would actually run it through ChatGPT. I'd be like, you're a QA analyst with, I don't know, 10 years of experience. You specialize in helping people be able to generate test cases so that the testers can be able to test. You manage a team of testers, and their duties are to help execute these test cases, make sure that they are thorough and they're easy to understand and that they are action focused or something. This is a prompt I used the other day. And, here is the documentation for our product. Ensure that you have enough test cases to cover the entire product and to cover all screens and all functionalities so that we can verify if this product is ready for customer launch or something. Again, this is a product that or a prompt that I just threw out of my head just a minute ago. So I think that's something we used the other day. But those are something like that a lot of project managers do.
Yeah, if I can also add to this, because it's a lot of what we do. So when it comes to a tool like ChatGPT, Remember, it has been trained on everything. And what you
Yeah.
want to do at the specific point is kind of like narrow the vision it has to say, hey, you know what, you're going to be a tester, accessibility, as Taylor indicated, you're going to have A, B, or C. Now, the problem with that is that sometimes you may get conflicting information.
Oh,
You may,
yes.
yeah, and that's a problem. So you may have a model window, but because it was trained on so much data out there, sometimes you're going to get good data and bad data. What we have done for that is we have actually created specific documentation, and that specific documentation apply not only to elements like a model window, buttons, accordions, so forth and so on. It provides specific information as to how it needs to be tested, what different assistive technologies are going to use, and how it relates to different WCAG success criteria. And then based on that, you're going to be able to see the actual information for that specific element, but then the AI is going to be able to guide you through it. Now, the important thing in here is that if you have specific information, like Taylor was saying, hey, by the way, this is my application, and you give it to the AI, you're going to have three main elements. One of them is going to be documentation on the
Yep.
specific element. The second one is going to be the documentation on your application. And the third one is going to be an AI that is ready to assess those ones and provide feedback for accessibility.
Yeah, and I will say, I'm not using AI as an accessibility tester, right? It's not ready for that. I use AI as an issue writer, right? Because we do a lot of manual testing. I'm not saying that ChatGPT or others is ready for accessibility testing. It's not. In fact, it creates inaccessible code more than anything. But
Yeah, yeah,
it can be a good issue writer and a writer overall.
100% agree with that.
Amazing. That was it for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexia. Taylor, it was a pleasure having you here today. If any of our viewers want to reach out or get in contact with you, what should they do? Where can they find you?
You can find me all over. So let's see. I'll try to list my social media. So Tay Arndt, TayArndt on X/Twitter/ whatever it's called these days. And then Tay Arndt at Techopolis, TECHOPOLIS.social is my Mastodon. I also have a Mastodon specifically for iOS developer stuff at Tayarnt at iosdev.space. I have my YouTube. You can type in Taylor, TayLorArndt, and get my YouTube. It will probably come right up. And then I have my email. So it's Taylor, Taylor, at Techopolis, TECHOPOLIS.online. And that is where I will get, and help you guys out. And then I have other social media like Facebook and others, and LinkedIn, of course. You could just search Taylor Arndt. I'm sure you'll be able to find me there. And, I'm always open to chat. I want to be able to help people with AI. It's what I love to do.
Taylor, thank you so much. To our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in our last episode for our second season. Alexia and Microsoft Reactor really want to thank you. And the main thing that we want to do with the Access Innovators Network is really teach people how to use AI, especially those ones with disabilities, to be able to level up. So thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
See you next time.